we're going to go from soft coup. I could totally see a real coup. You mentioned General Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Do people remember why Donald Trump said that Milley should have been brought up on charges of treason recently? It's because Mark Milley called his counterparts in China and said, "Don't worry. I mean, my boss is a nut job, but we're not going to attack you." You don't do that. That you are not supposed to do that. You serve at the pleasure of the president. It is completely out of bounds to do something like that.
This is how I always imagined this channel would end. And you know what? I'm glad that it ended the way that it's kind of like a movie. You kind of imagine how you want, like, an ideal ending. This is the ideal ending for the show. This is great.
I want to get into speculation territory. What if Justin's wrong? What if Donnie is right, like always? And what if Donald Trump sails to victory? And you know what? I'm not even going to say sails to victory. I'm saying loses the popular vote, edges out the Electoral College, wins by 2 or something like that, three electoral votes, something like that, and wins, declares victory on election night. What happens? Jim, I'm going to let you take first whack at this. What is the reaction on election night when Joe Biden has to walk out and do a meek concession speech? What happens, dude? What happens?
Well, I got to say, I've been following politics, for a long time. I mean, I was 14 or 13 years old when Ronald Reagan was reelected in 1984 in a landslide. And I really enjoyed, even back then, looking at the hangdog looks of guys like Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw, who they couldn't believe. And they had to say, it had to come across their teeth, the words, Ronald Reagan has won in a historic landslide. I may be long dead before we have any kind of historic landslides like we had in 1984 again in this country. So divided are we. But the most fun I've ever had on a presidential election night was 2016. It was just glorious to see these members of the media on CNN and MSNBC and the networks. They just couldn't believe it. They were absolutely in shock. And I was laughing and having such a great time. I don't think that is going to happen this time. Let's just say, as you said, we have to, for this scenario, we have to pretend that Donald Trump has won. He will not have won in a landslide. And we also have to pretend, frankly, that the networks will call it for Donald Trump on election night. I think that's never going to happen. No way. But let's just pretend that it did. And that Donald Trump is clearly elected president again for a second time. Just from the media is going to lose its mind even more than they already have. And you can come back around with me on this one, but I think it's very clear from what is going on against Donald Trump. They were undermining the system. The deep state was undermining Donald Trump while he was a candidate. The Obama administration basically had meetings to decide how the most powerful agencies in our government could undermine him before he was inaugurated. Media speculation and others and political speculation was that we must find a way to make sure that he is not inaugurated president. Again, this was in 2016. What do you think they're going to do now if he's actually elected president again? Although we know that the deep state, and there is a permanent bureaucracy in this country that actually runs things. And if the American people dare to elect somebody who that they think is wrong, who is not in the club, who will not go along with the deep state and their agenda, they have proven they will do everything in their power to make sure that person would not actually take the White House again. We've never been in a situation like this before, where the entire society, the entire media thinks that to save democracy, we must make sure that the people can't choose their president.
Justin, I want to go to you next because, you seem like the least convinced that Trump has a shot. It's unthinkable, seemingly, from your perspective. And surely it's unthinkable from a whole lot of people on the left's perspective. So what are your thoughts of what the reactions would be if Trump pulls off the impossible?
So this is a real, I'm not joking. This is a real question. to you in this scenario. Is Trump in jail or is Trump not in jail?
Let's go with he's in jail.
So if he's in jail, I think that people will be not quite as insane as if he's not.
All right, let's say he's not in jail.
Okay. Because
I want the most insane. He's not in jail.
Okay.
He just got released.
If he's not in jail, he's the clear winner. Everyone sort of agrees. I don't even know that it matters that it happens on an election night or if it happens 4 or 5 days after that. They probably will hold out hope no matter what. I think you can make a pretty legitimate argument that it could be the end of America. Like I think you could make that argument legitimately because there is a certain segment of the country that is so convinced that he is an illegitimate criminal who is a fascist dictator type who now is worse than he ever was before because now he wants revenge. Like he's the fascist, but now with a revenge mindset coming into power. I'll give you an example. Okay. This is like a real example of what people are saying. Jennifer Rubin, who was supposedly a Republican or a right-leaning opinion commentator at some point in time, who is at the Washington Post, went on Twitter yesterday or the day before, X, and said that she's not going to cover the debate. She's not going to cover that. She's not going to waste her time covering the Republican debate. Instead, she's going to talk about how Donald Trump just threatened to execute Mark Milley, General Milley, because of stuff that he said about while Trump was, some of the stuff he was doing while Trump was still president. Okay. Now Trump didn't say that. Now Trump said something that was, like a Trumpian, but he didn't say that. Okay. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to say that he's going to start rounding people up and like executing people. Like they're going to actually say that kind of stuff. Like that's what they're going to say. They're going to be riots in the streets. They're going to be burning down courthouses. They're going to be saying that like the furthest left-wing element is going to be taking the not my president thing to like an extreme. They're going to be declaring autonomous zones.
I was going to say, we're going to see another one of those.
Like all that is going to happen for sure. Like for sure. But I know that there are people. I thought Donald Trump prior to January 6th, I really thought Donald Trump was like one of the best presidents we've had in a very long time. Okay. So I'm saying all of that. I want people to keep in mind that I just said that. All right. Now I'm going to say this. I don't know that America truly can survive if Donald Trump wins. I really just don't. I just don't think that you can have a president, have America survive with a president when 40% of the country really believes that like he's going to execute people and that he's a fascist dictator and all this crazy stuff and that he's illegitimate. Surely they're going to say that he stole the election somehow or whatever. They're going to do that. I just don't see how we survive as a country.
So what? But here, Justin, let me take the opposite. I'll play devil's advocate because I kind of, have a opposite view on this. I think the country cannot survive another 4 years of Biden at all. 70% of Americans think that we are turning into a police state based on the Biden, action so far. I don't care if the media goes crazy. I don't care if all these, left wingers, protest and do all that stuff. Fine, go for it, do it. All that matters to me is that Jim alluded to this, that Donald Trump brings a reckoning with the deep state, which is ruining our government. The fourth branch of government thinks that they have all the control. He needs to bring the FBI to heel. He needs to bring the intelligence agencies to heel. And I think that he is the avenger that can do that. And I think that the fact that he won't have to worry about being reelected means the gloves will be off and he will finally do what needs to be done.
Everything you're saying right now is the rhetoric.
That's
exactly what
guys, but wait a second. But just put the rhetoric aside for a second. We all can agree that the deep state, like Jim mentioned, permanent Washington, whatever you want to call it, the intelligentsia, that they run the show. They've been running the show for way too long. Donald Trump, when he first got into office, he tried to fix that broken system. What did they do? They took every single quiver in there, in every single tool that they had and used it against him. But guess what? Now he doesn't have to worry about re-election. Now he knows, the terms of, the game here. So I think that, if we don't, I just think that another 4 years of Biden, our economy is just going to go, to hell. Internationally, China is going to take over Taiwan. It's just, I don't think that the United States can afford 4 more years of Biden.
Wait, I want to get into the deep state and the government response and all of that, but I just want to go to Samantha for one last kind of comment on just like the media in general, broadly speaking. If the media's reaction to 2016 was a 10, what do you think it's going to be this time if Trump wins?
A 100. I think I will have friends that will legitimately, like Justin said, believe that our nation is broken and they need to leave. And they might actually feel so deeply as to like choose to not be my friend anymore because of what I do for work and where I stand politically. I think that it will reawaken and galvanize a very deep and draconian thing inside a lot of people who are legitimately, like I said earlier, emotional and visceral about Trump as president. That's
but Tony, one of the differences when we lose elections, we don't sit there for 4 years, just frothing at the mouth.
No, we take over the Capitol building.
No. Actually, what we do is
I'm kidding you too,
and we move on. But one of the things that I noticed in literally the day after I was teaching in Bluffton High School, a lot of the teachers came in wearing all black and telling their students, "Oh, this is the beginning of the end," and all this stuff.
Oh, dude,
they are the ones who are unwilling to accept when they lose. And to me, this is one of the times where just accept it, deal with it, and move on.
Hold on, I know Jim has a lot he wants to say about all of this, and he should, because I want to hear.
Oh, and by the way, folks, we're going long. If you couldn't tell already.
Yeah, it is definitely. But I just want to add this because I didn't say this before, and I think this is actually a really important part of my prediction. So you said under this scenario, Donald Trump's not in prison, right? Sure. He's elected, and I say everyone's rioting and there's chaos in the streets and whatever. Mm-hmm. He will then be put in prison. Like that will then happen. So if he's not in prison, he'll be in prison. They'll put him in prison. They'll find some court somewhere, will throw him in prison. And then the right will then turn into like they're imprisoning the president. This is like a coup. And again, my overall prediction, America can't survive. That's my overarching prediction for all of this. But I think if he's not in prison, they'll put him in prison. I think if he is in prison, they might be tamped down a little bit. But
so that gets into the next part, which is kind of like the government's reaction to this. Whether or not you just want to call it the government or the Democrats, the left, the bureaucracies, deep state, intelligence, whatever you want to call it. What is their reaction to it? Jim, I think you already kind of teased a little bit about this in some of your responses. So why don't you take first whack at this part of the debate?
Yeah, well, we all agree that this country is just going to come apart at the seams if Trump is elected, and as I mentioned before, it's going to be worse than what we saw the first time around. I mean, Mark Levin and others have described as what happened to Donald Trump as a soft coup. I mean, and it was before he was even inaugurated, and that the people in power in the Obama administration are now in power in the Biden administration is basically the same people. They thought nothing of violating the constitutional rights of innocent Americans to take down Trump. And I'm meaning people like Carter Page and others in his, peripheral advisors. Let's lie to a secret court and be able to spy on these people so we can get Trump.
Yeah,
there
about
wasn't
Michael
a single
Flynn.
person in any of these meetings in which they discussed doing these things that said to anybody else in the room, guys, that violates the constitutional rights of people who didn't do anything wrong. Not one person said that. They just said, what is important is that we get Donald Trump. They impeached him twice on absolutely BS charges. And now they're trying to take his businesses away. They were going after his kids. I mean, they did everything. And there was never anybody in the room who said, look, guys, this is an abuse of power. This is not what we do as Americans. Let's just beat him the next time he's up for election. No. From before he even took the oath of office, the entire system of our government and society worked to take him down. They were talking about invoking the 25th Amendment because he was Looney Tunes immediately after he was sworn in. And this was discussed openly and as if it was a normal thing in our media and in our politics. And so I think if he is elected again, we're going to go from soft coup. I could totally see a real coup. You mentioned General Milley, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Do people remember why Donald Trump said that Milley should have been brought up on charges of treason recently? It's because Mark Milley called his counterparts in China and said, right, "Don't worry. I mean, my boss is a nut job, but we're not going to attack you."
But Jim, wouldn't it be?
You don't do that. You don't do that. That you are not supposed to do that. You do. You serve at the pleasure of the president. It is completely out of bounds to do something like that. This would be the equivalent in the Cold War of somebody calling up the Soviets and saying, "Don't worry. If you see any noise about a nuclear attack, it's completely fake. Don't worry about it." That person in the Cold War would have been brought up on charges of treason. You don't do that. Milley didn't do that once. He did it twice. He did it again on January 6th. Oh, I called you before. I just want to assure you again, don't worry. We're not going to do anything to you. Trump's crazy and stuff. You don't do that shit. I'm sorry. There I go. I swear again. I get upset. So it is completely within the realm of my imagination that people like Milley would go to the Pentagon and get up a bunch of people to actually gather men and march to the White House and take Donald Trump into custody. I totally can see that happening, considering everything that's already happened in the soft coup stage. And do I think the Secret Service would hand him right over? Yes, I do. I do, because I don't think anybody in our government anywhere, I don't have any trust in any of our institutions that I'm even willing to entertain something I would have thought was insane just 5-6 years ago, that the Secret Service of the United States would hand over the sitting president to Mark Milley and other people from the Pentagon to depose the elected president of the United States. And the kicker in all of this is that through all of this, those people think they're the good guys. They think they're doing this, and they say it all the time, to save democracy. And so that, I think, is a plausible scenario if Donald Trump is elected president next year.
Is Jim.
But Donald Trump is going to fight back against that. He's not going to let this happen to him. So I think that even if they do try to pull,
how,
I would never put anything past him. But you know what? If we are afraid of the consequences of Trump winning because of the left's insane reaction to it, that makes me even want him to win even more. Just to show them for their true colors. And if they are so afraid of Donald Trump that they would resort to that, then that would actually prove to the American people that these are the ones who are against, democracy, against, the people, against, the Constitution. And I think that would actually make Donald Trump look better, and it would actually help in his, quest to finally, once and for all, drain the swamp and put the deep state where it belongs.
Okay, so real quick, Jim, do you think that Trump ends up in prison? If because you kind of said, okay, I think he will. I think he ends up in prison somehow
before the election.
Because
those aren't going to go to trial before the election.
No. Well, we don't know that. It's possible one of them will go to. All they need to do is convict him on one felony to put him in prison. That's it. But I think he'll end up in prison. If he wins, and he's not in prison at the time of the election, I think he'll end up in prison. Jim says yes, he ends up in prison.
But if he wins and he's the sitting president, I highly doubt that they would be able to go through with that.
Well, he wouldn't be. He would be the elected. He'd be the president-elect. He wouldn't be the sitting president. But you're telling me from November to January that they would be able to put that trial through and convict him, and without the appeals process taking place? Because you wouldn't go to jail immediately. You could have an appeal. No, you can go to jail immediately, and they can put him in jail just pre-trial, without bail. I mean, they can do whatever they want. I think they will do whatever it takes to stop this man from becoming president. And that was, I think, what Jim was just saying. Like, I think they will do whatever it takes to stop him from being. So Chris doesn't agree. That's totally fine. Samantha, do you think that Trump gets thrown in jail as a political prisoner if this happens?
Union?
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Am I crazy? Is Chris crazy?
I completely agree with Jim and Justin. I couldn't have said it better than Jim or Justin. They would do anything. I keep saying it's an emotional, it's a visceral, is a primal reaction.
I totally agree that they are going to do that. However, what I'm saying is that we can't kowtow and say, well, we don't want to upset the apple cart too much. I almost want that to happen so that it's like a final reckoning happens.
Oh,
I would put my money on Donald Trump.
So
we need to like stand our ground. This is the hill we have to die on.
There's like faction of people who consider themselves like accelerationalists, which basically like they feel that for this nation to heal, like it would take a monumental break of that shift. Like perhaps this theory of having a democratic nation where you have so many states that are so completely different, this experiment of the United States, like maybe just isn't working, because the people who live in California and in New York are so monumentally different from the rest of the country that maybe a breaking point needs to happen. And that's terrifying. And I'm not saying that's my belief by any means, but I am just adding another perspective.
Okay. No, I don't want to scare people about it. I just want to like prepare for what could happen. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
You haven't actually answered the question yet, Donald. You're the only one. Everyone else is on the record. Inevitably, this is going to get played when they're dragging Trump off to jail. This is going to be played. I want to know. I want you on the record. Is he going to jail if he wins or not?
First off, Samantha, you haven't been on the podcast in a while. I promise you that this isn't what every episode is like. This is an outlier.
I actually love this. I'm disappointed if that's great. Also, you didn't answer the question, Donald Duck.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I'm ducking the question over here. Yeah. So that's gonna do it for it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's going to be apocalyptic. I think it's going to make 2016 look like nothing. I think if Trump edges out a victory, you are going to see a meltdown like you have never seen before. They're already laying the groundwork for some of this. We didn't even get to some of these articles that I put in the show notes, but there's articles, one's from the Atlantic, one's from the New Republic or something like that, both talking about these like potential constitutional clauses that are in place that strictly prohibit a president that has done treasonous stuff or whatever from actually taking office. And that type of stuff is going to be invoked. That is the whole reason why they're trying to make the riot of January 6th, 2021 painted as an insurrection or something like that, so that they could lay this foundation to completely disqualify him from ever being president. I don't think, I mean, I don't know. I can probably put my tinfoil hat on or something like that and change my own mind here, but I don't think that they ever thought that Trump would be in this position where he would be like clearly the candidate of choice in the primaries and clearly going up against Biden for round 2. And all of the things kind of breaking against Biden. Again, I don't think were expected. They went on there. We talked about Bidenomics a handful of weeks ago, and the narrative that they were trying to push, like I said at the beginning of all of this, was that it's a raging success. Oh, the economy's doing so well. Can you believe that Biden policies are lifting everybody out of all these bad situations? BS. It's not happening. Everyone sees it. So I think that is further helping Trump reclaim the presidency and all of that. And if he does, all bets are off, man.
Donnie,
jail or no jail?
Oh, I think they'll. Yeah, I think they'll put him in jail.
Jail it is. It's jail.
So,
but I don't think that's going to help. I think that'll help him. I think that's going to help him. So,
are we even comprehending how insane this conversation is?
Oh, it's insane.
The 5 people on this podcast, that all 5 of us probably agree that one way or another, they're going to make sure that Donald Trump, a former president of the United States, the leading candidate for the Republican Party of the United States, will be in jail. Well, hopefully before the election, but definitely by after the election, win or lose.
What's the flip side?
Insane.
What's the flip side of it, Jim? That he wins and they're like, well, good election. Freest and fairest election since last time. Have fun, Donald Trump.
Impossible.
That is the least likely of scenarios.
Well, I mean, Donnie, but of course that's not going to happen. But part of the reason why I think that they are so, unwilling to accept him as, the next president is because for the first time in so many years, an outsider came in and said, you know what, it's time to rock the boat. And they just cannot stand that, especially permanent Washington, the bureaucracy, the deep state. That's why they are just, scared out of their minds of him coming in and really just saying, I learned from my mistakes in the first term. From day one, it's going to be, just a war against the deep state. And I think that is what we need. And that's what the American people want.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, this is probably a little premature. Obviously, we're not even through the primaries. Whole lot of stuff could happen between now and the general election. But I think it is, like I said, I think it is interesting, and I think it's important to kind of think about what could happen, especially in a scenario like this. And like I said, it's not an impossible scenario. Like I think you could say it's coin flip. Maybe you could say it's a little less, but I think it's well north of 0% chance of happening. So
I think this is make or break for the country. And I think that, it's 4 more years of Biden will take us down a path that is, I think, beyond repair. I think that he would then have the gloves off too, get rid of the filibuster, just all sorts of stuff. Maybe, Puerto Rico statehood, who knows?
Pack the Supreme Court.
Pack the Supreme, all that stuff. So I think it is incumbent upon, the people who believe in the Constitution, believe in limited government, believe in federalism and all that great stuff to say enough is enough. We're going to put a guy in there who is actually going to defend those founding principles. And if it means that the left is going to go haywire, then fine, so be it. That's on them. But I'm just so sick and tired of not having that fighting spirit. Mitt Romney didn't have the fighting spirit. Donald Trump, for the first time in my lifetime, had that fighting spirit on our side. And look what happened. We actually made some major progress. I'm not saying that it was perfect, but he did what he said he would do. And that's something that almost all politicians never do. Donald Trump is not a politician. That's why I like him, because he's an outsider. He comes in there and just applies common sense solutions, and he doesn't deal with all the political BS.
He's I just want to pony soldier.
I just want to say, that this is how I always imagined this channel would end. And you know what? I'm glad that it ended the way that it's kind of like a movie. You kind of imagine how you like an ideal ending. This is the ideal ending for the show. This is great. I appreciate
a climactic conclusion to the in the tank saga.
It's like the movie Deep Impact. You're standing on the beach, seeing this huge wave that's a mile high coming right at you.
Of YouTube
and just tons of people you love as it comes over you. Yeah.
No way. We're making it to 420, Donnie.
Yeah, we got to get to episode 420.